Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon. Why, hello, and welcome to Season 24, Episode 14 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
Hi, I'm Pooja.
And I'm Tappy.
And JackerCon is coming up.
Mm-hmm. Soon.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to go to jackercon.com.
Ooh, nice plug.
And find out when the actual dates are. It begins June 23rd through July 1st. Go to jackercon.com. There are games being run, there are games being played, and there are players playing and signing up, and GMs signing up games. You should do that.
If you haven't signed up for the Masks game on Friday the 28th, maybe? I don't know dates. If there's still spots left, I'll be in that one.
There you go. Excellent. And also,
or, warning, I'll be in that one.
thank you to EasyRollerDice.com for sponsoring the last 3 episodes. We appreciate that very much. They're wonderful people, and their Kickstarter is EasyRollerDice.com/giants with an S. And you can go and get the big dice. Go do that.
Big ol' dice.
In this episode...
Do they roll easily, though?
Yes, they do. Virk writes in about PvP.
Bjork?
Bjork?
Oh my god, Bjork wrote in.
Wow.
Awesome. This is the best day ever.
Writes in about PvP at a con game. Byron writes in about math and RPGs. And Ryan writes in about character progression and player engagement. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We're on the social medias. We have a forum. Have we mentioned our forum? We should mention our forum. happyjacksforum.com. You can go there and you can get in a flame war, and they're wonderful. Flame wars are great.
Or, you can have a nice discussion and get advice about your games or talk about your favorite, TTRPG memes. That's my favorite thread.
Yes. Or get in a flame war.
¿Por qué no los dos?
We're also on all of the social meteors. Well, 4 of them. We're on Twitter, HappyJacksRPG, all one word. We're also on Instagram, HappyJacksRPG, all one word. And we're on Facebook, HappyJacksRPG, all one word. And MeWe, HappyJacksRPG, all one word. I haven't posted in 3 weeks.
I don't believe MeWe exists.
It does.
It's pronounced Mewe.
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 I like MeWe because I call the people who follow us on MeWe the MeWeans.
But for me,
And moving right along.
that sounds kind of like you're calling them Lilliputians, but without so many words or letters.
Well, like a weean.
Yeah, right?
The wee bairns,
Oh man, I was just listening to something and that Scottish accent, and I was like, please stop.
It's
Oh, what was it? We were talking last night about the 1950-something film of Brigadoon and the horrendous Scottish accents in it. And that reminded me of something, because I just finished watching Riverdale, the 3rd season, and my daughter had binged it and finished it 4 or 5 days before I did. And I was watching it, and she came out and she said, "Oh, I love this song." And it was the Tina Turner, "We Don't Need Another Hero" from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. And,
yeah.
And I told her, I said, "Yeah, there's a whole series of movies about this." I said, "I saw it." I'm like, "No, not the long chase scene. I'm talking about the earlier films." And I said, the funny thing is, the very first movie, Mad Max, when they used to show it on TV here, they dubbed it because they didn't think people in America would understand Australian accents.
Because they're so very difficult.
Right.
Just like they dubbed Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was like
Hercules in New York.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's wretched. It's
Oh, yeah.
amazing.
Because he talks like
this. That's insane.
That's and
Yeah, that was before they discovered lip flap.
right. And Mad Max had a voice like this. Yeah, it was awesome. It was fantastic. If you want to watch the show live, go to happyjacks.org/live on Friday nights at 7 p.m. at Pacific time, and you can watch the show live and join us in the chat room. And I'll open up the chat room right now just to make sure there's people there.
Or to,
or not.
Crush what little is left of our egos when we find out no one is there.
I watched Ralph Breaks the Internet.
It's good.
I liked it.
I really liked it.
It was a sweet movie. It really was.
I've never seen it.
Have you seen Wreck-It Ralph?
Nope. I'm behind on my children's
I have-
movies. I'll be honest. Like, without a youthful influence in my life to I tend to gravitate towards all the anime.
Oh, okay. See, I started to try to watch.
So like a teenage influence really is what your life is just normally.
I mean, around the time when I discovered anime, back when sci-fi was spelled really differently and Cartoon Network had an anime section, X redacted number of years ago. It's kind of been that way ever since. It never stopped.
My stepson's been showing me JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. And that's an exciting one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about it because we've already drifted.
Okay.
We've drifted so far. We should probably actually get to the letters.
All right. Convention PvP from Virik. Do you want to read this one since you don't want to read the last one? I'll take the bullet and read the last one.
Thank you. Convention game PvP from Virk. Virk?
Virik.
Bjork. Hello, Lord Stu, Lady Kimmy, and the rest of the Jacker Court. Oh, Kimmy us off on her own adventure today. At this year's Game X, I was able to play in a PBTA game called The Sword, The Crown, and the Unspeakable Power. Or maybe it really was the unpeakable power, but I think you meant unspeakable. So I'm just going to go with that.
No, it just keeps going. It never peaks.
The tagline that was given to me after I had already sat down to play was, "It's like Game of Thrones, the RPG. This game is about seeking power for yourself and backstabbing." I freaked out. PvP is the last thing I want in my RPGs, and even more so at a con table with strangers. I glanced around the table and saw Jason Mills and Heavy Metal Jess from Happy Jacks, and Gene was our GM. Well, if I was ever going to try this, I guess this is the best time for it. I stayed.
Excellent.
Good job. This is not hyperbole. This game might have been the most fun I have ever had in an RPG. All the players were 100% in. Everybody knew it was a game. No one took the backstabbing personally. There were so many details at the table, it was like a Risk game. Well, if Risk was actually fun. I feel you there. I feel you.
I haven't
I
played
think I've only
Risk.
played Risk like once.
I played Risk like way back in the day when it was like there weren't any like cannons or anything different. There was like just one thing where it's like it was kind of shaped like a triangle sort of, and then you had another thing that was 5 people, and then you just kind of moved them around. It was really slow.
Like, I always felt like Risk was the abject lesson in never start a land war in Asia. Also because there goes the rest of your life, like, into this game as you die from boredom. But after the game, I really sat down and tried to figure out why that game worked. I know the game was blessed with great players like Jason and Heavy Metal Jess. Yes, we all love them. They're great. But was that all that it really could be? But was that all it could really be? Heck, one of the players got screwed early, and we basically all turned on him for the rest of the game. But it was still fun.
Was it fun for him, though?
That was a question. When I was reading that, I was a little worried about that, too. It was still really fun. I guess my question is it just players that can make adversarial RPGs fun? Have you all ever had games where PvP turned out fun and not something you needed therapy for later? Thanks again for everything Happy Jack's done. Bjork from the forums.
Thanks, Bjork.
Thanks, Bjork. We love you. For me personally, I guess, I talk about this a lot when I'm on this podcast, but whatever. I'm going to get back up on the soapbox and say it's not necessarily, yes, you had great players in your games, but it's about player buy-in. If people know going in, like everybody who sat down at that table knew, or in your case, after you sat down at the table, knew that it was going to be a game about backstabbing, it was going to be a game about this kind of infighting. So people went in with that assumption, and it wasn't a surprise to anyone. So you all bought into that premise. And I feel like at its core, to have like an interesting adversarial game that remains fun for people, they have to be okay with that. And they have to have bought in from the beginning. If that's something that like is sprung on somebody, then there's a sense of betrayal as a player that can happen. I've had that happen to me in past games, actually, where like, you know, you're playing Pathfinder and suddenly like one of your party decides to go all in for themselves and like screw over everyone else, or you get targeted by your party, and that's not fun. That like is the quickest way for me to eject. But like the But the buy-in is, I think, like the most important thing. Though I really would wonder, like, did the guy who got turned on super early
I don't
really
know.
have fun? Did he have as much fun as you did? Or
might-
she? Did he or she?
I think
would
think
like to see
saying
that
the
person's
thing
letter.
of like that who got turned on really early could be taken in a very different way.
Well, I mean, it is Game of Thrones, so it could be both.
yeah.
Why not both?
Yeah, why not both?
But also, like, I mean, for those of you who watched our first kind of like half of the Traveler playthrough, Kimmy and I actually had a pretty adversarial relationship
Yeah.
throughout a large, like our first few sessions. But that was something that we had talked about and agreed on really early on, like, that this was, like, our characters were so, they were naturally going to, like, butt heads and have this, like, contention. And that was something that we talked about as players. To, like, yes, let's play into this. And, like, Kimmy and I are really good friends, and we talk all the time, and, like, so we knew going into it that this is all like RPCs, not us. So we had a lot of fun.
I would like to echo your buy-in point because I think that's a really good point. One of the things about L5R that we talk about a lot is that it's super deadly. But, I mean, John Wick makes a good game. And one of the things that he put in there along with, yes, if you decide to get into combat, it's very likely you will get killed. So understand that from the beginning. But also there's a mechanic that if you die, there's a way of tallying up points to make your next character. You get extra points, and your next character actually comes back better than the one that you originally had. So there's a mechanical thing of like, it's okay if your character dies, along with this idea of, please understand, if you choose to get into combat, it is very, very likely you may die. Then, I mean, I game group played metric fuck ton of that game. And we had characters die all the time. And we would write like death haikus and like read them out if like somebody died. Like if we ever went into like a battle, we'd all write haikus about like our character and what they'd gone through, etc.
Love that. That's great.
Yeah, and then like we'd read them and go outside and burn them. It was awesome. But that's because we bought into that idea that our characters were going to die. Otherwise, people would be like, "This is bullshit," you know.
Yeah.
My character died and didn't even get to do anything. Or I'm halfway through the arc I wanted to do and my character died. Like in Pathfinder, you wouldn't expect like dudes to come out with sticks and beat you to death.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't really expect that, but that totally happened in one of our games where like a bunch of guys with hambo, which are like these 5-foot sticks, like came out and just beat the ever living fuck out of us. And we almost had a complete TPK because we just, it's how the dice go. And it's how the game goes. Like, if you get hit, you're going to have a bad day. So, yeah, I mean, if you have buy-in for a concept, it's going to go well. I have not had a game where I specifically want to do PvP that I've run because I like characters like doing awesome shit together, not against each other. That being said, the last Apocalypse World game I had ended with their two characters, a couple, that one of them was not used to role-playing and made some really like odd choices that kind of like drifted her off from the group. And so her wife, her character kind of like went with her, and they had like their own kind of thing, and the rest of the group had their own kind of thing. And it came to a head, and people died. And that game kind of had to stop at that point. So, we tried bringing it back, and it just didn't work. So it was like a super good, amazing, incredible game until there was PvP, and then it just all kind of fell apart. So, like, I think that and my players are incredible players. Like, super crazy, unbelievable, amazing players. So, like, I think you're right. I totally think that it's, even with really, really great players, really great players will make decisions that their character should make. Because that's what they made the character for, and are playing, like, in that character's realm and as that character. But when you get to PvP and things start getting heated because you are really, like, invested in your character, things go badly real fast. So yeah, I think that is the buy-in is way more important than just having good players.
Well, no,
And it's not just how attached you are to your character, but how attached you are to the party. Because if you feel like there's a certain trust or camaraderie, or like you're really into like the party as a group, and you feel like there's a level of like bonds there, and that gets betrayed, that can lead to blowback onto like a personal level of betrayal feelings.
the game that screams out to me is Vampire the Masquerade, which in and of itself is in many ways kind of a PvP game.
Yeah, everybody definitely has their own
Because
agenda.
I mean, you're talking about solitary predators who are getting together to survive.
Right.
Right. That's why otherwise they wouldn't have anything to do with each other. And they're thrust into a situation, but they're all solitary predators, and they all act like solitary predators. And there's pecking orders, and there's positions of importance, and even in, I mean, our vampire game here that Modasin was fairly cooperative, but there was some backstabbing happening between characters. But there again, you're playing vampire, and I guess if you're playing vampire, you're buying into the fact that there may be people who have cross purposes.
I mean, I think a vampire game works really well with no plot whatsoever, and just have everybody have their own things, and they all fuck with each other, and the NPCs have their own personal agendas. But there's no like overarching plot. You're not like trying to do a thing. There's no like big bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and give the players agency and let them do their thing. I would totally agree.
In the not apocryphal, but in the much talked about, at least by me, GURPS game I ran through college, we had players who very, very much played their characters and stuck with the disads that their characters had. And there was a point, and I've told the story numerous times, but I'll bring it up again because I think it's relevant now. Two of the players came to me before the session and said, player X's character, our characters have decided that his character is dangerous. And we're in a situation right now where A, we don't trust him, B, we're afraid that he's going to kill us, and because he's a reasonably powerful mage, he might be able to get away with it. So we're going to assassinate him when he's unaware. And they did in the course of the game. No one got pissed, that I recall. I mean, I guess I'd have to talk to Stevie and see if he actually was pissed off or not, but he didn't seem like he was pissed off.
Stevie, if you're listening, I want to read that letter too.
Yeah. But he made another character and came back, and the game went on. Now there was another thing that had happened earlier with a different player who they're just two characters that they just didn't mesh, and they were like constantly at odds with each other. The players themselves never were, but the two characters, because everyone really played to their disads, they were just constantly at odds with each other. And they ended up getting in a fight. And one of the players, Bill, decapitated the other character, thus killing him. So he had to make a new character.
I would hope so, I guess,
Yes.
at that point.
It's the universal cure for life.
Yeah, GURPS is pretty clear about what happens to your character when it's decapitated.
Yeah.
So he ended up making his character's brother. That stereotypical
Bent on
thing.
revenge.
I was actually thinking about that when you were talking about your L5R and bringing another character back. I was like, you could go soap opera with this, and it's like the lost twin brother or sister comes back, and like, oh, but it's me, but with a completely different face, and like, all the great things, like all the great tropiness about soap operas without having to sit through hundreds of hours of them.
Yeah, I would totally go with that trope, actually, in L5R, just because, sure, I mean, go for it. And then the person who killed your brother, you now have a thing for, and
Oh, sure.
you're gonna
Yes,
kill, and,
yes,
And
for
if
sure.
he's-
Oh my god!
Because it's L5R, it's not like it's going to last forever. You're going to fight, and somebody's going to die again.
Right.
Or you bring in, and it's like the backstory is like, oh, it's one of the other players' like ex-lovers, and then it turns out that ex-lover was that like the deceased character's like twin, but with a facial reconstruction surgery.
That you're going full guiding light.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. But another
wanna be
thing I
in
wanted
Alpha
to.
But
I want to be in all the games. Like, let's be real. Another thing that this made me think of was Munchkin, which is not a TTRPG, but it is it's a card game for those of you who haven't played. And straight up, you go in a dungeon. There's going to be backstabbing. It's on the box.
and it's a game that's a parody of many of the worst
Dungeon crawlers.
D&D games.
Yeah. And like everything else at this point. It's
Yes.
got like 30 versions.
Yeah.
But a group of friends of mine and I used to play Munchkin regularly, like pretty much weekly. And
Wow.
they're out of the hundreds of Munchkin games we played, and we used to like mix and match the expansions
Oh,
and
yeah.
different flavors. Don't match Cthulhu and Zombie and Bites. You'll all just die. It's a mean game. It's a mean game when you go full. When you go full full in. But like out of those hundreds of games, like I can remember somebody getting really hot and like actually angry maybe 2 or 3 times. So yeah, like it's as long as you know what's on the tin.
Yeah. I mean, this also reminds me of Diplomacy. I don't know, have you ever played Diplomacy? Diplomacy is basically World War I.
Sounds boring.
You play one of 7 great powers. There's no dice. It's all numbers. If you have 2 armies and you're going against someone who has 1, the people with 2 armies wins. That's the basic game mechanics of the game. There's no randomizer at all. No one has the ability to win the game on their own. You have to build alliances. And at some point, you're going to backstab your allies. That's kind of the conceit of the game. And it's 7 players, and friendships have ended playing that game. Because you'll go to someone, no, dude, I'm going to be your ally. I swear, you and I are going to have a joint victory. In 1918 spring, we will have won. It's going to be fantastic. And then 6 months before that, next thing you know, my armies are marching in and... What did you do, you motherfucker? You know, that sort of thing. But we used to play that.
See, that doesn't sound fun. That to me, that sounds personal.
Well, see, I
Like,
think
because
that's
it's the
kind of getting.
difference
That's getting to my
between-
point. That's getting to my point.
Okay.
I don't necessarily. I mean, yes, it's buy-in, but I think there are some people who could buy into a PvP situation and mean it, and there's other people who will buy into it because they don't want to be left out of the game that everyone else is playing, and really don't mean it. Because we've had people, because we always let everyone know up front, this is what Diplomacy is like. We used to play it a lot. If you don't, and it hours long game. I mean, you can play this game for 6 or 8 hours at a time. Because there's diplomacy rounds in each turn.
Yeah.
So you go and separate with the map of the board, and you talk to people. Well, if you do this, I'll do that for you. And then, it's just things like that. And you're talking. There's 7 people, so you're having a lot of different conversations with people. But there are some people who are like, yeah, sure, I'll play it, who got super pissed off when they got backstabbed. Because almost everyone gets backstabbed in that game at some point or another, except the guy who wins. Unless the guy who wins knows he's going to get backstabbed, and then he's like, okay, well, I'm going to prepare for this now because I think it's going to happen, which happens. But generally speaking, everyone's going to get screwed at some point if they play enough games of Diplomacy. And I've been in games where people got super pissed off about it, even though they knew going in that this is what the game is.
I guess like there is a level of remove when you're talking about a TTRPG setting versus when you're talking about something like Diplomacy, where you're trading on real relationships with people.
Like, come on, buddy, you're
Yes,
my
you are.
best friend. I'm not going to backstab you.
Like, you know,
It's like,
me.
you're going to backstab me.
Bill and I used to say the exact same thing to each other, and we were both lying.
But like that's the thing. It's like this trades in on some I guess some personal issues that I have. But whatever. I need to know that I can like trust my friends' words
Right.
when we're talking about my friends. When we're talking about my friends' characters in an RPG, I don't need to be able to trust their words in terms of like a continuing ongoing personal relationship with the player.
Now, what if everyone playing Diplomacy dressed up as the monarch of that country?
They would have to actually role play as the monarch of that country.
That would be amazing. I would play that game.
And
100%.
And that I would do.
I want to be Queen Elizabeth.
Victoria.
Or Victoria.
I was about to say, like,
We are not amused. You're going to have to fight me for Queen Victoria.
Oh, God damn it.
I would watch that fight.
I don't.
I'd bring
wanna
popcorn
be
for that.
like-
You mean Kaiser Wilhelm
I don't want to be.
or a pickle halba with a little spike?
I don't want to wear.
No one wants to wear.
I don't.
one
I
wants
do not
I've
want to
been
be
trying to-
photographed or on any sort of.
I've been
stream
trying
with
to.
a pickle
I've been
helmet.
trying to find one.
They're,
I think
they're
you
leather.
volunteered to be.
They've been
I
destroyed.
could no. I could. Well, I can only find small, like ornamental ones.
Oh my god, it's even better!
Oh my god!
Tiny.
Just
like,
glue it on you.
You do a tiny hat version
A little tiny bowler.
where everyone role plays as the monarch, and they have tiny hats.
A little tiny crown for Queen Victoria.
Yes.
The little boxy hat for the French. I can't
The
remember.
Prime Minister.
Is it de Gaulle? Was it de Gaulle? Who was that? I don't remember. But get little, that'd be awesome. A little tiny beret for the a beret for the French guy. And then what would the Italian guy have?
I feel like the beret isn't that a little modern for?
It might be.
World War I?
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be.
Either way.
Yeah,
Besides the fact
bizarre.
that I want this so badly right now. So much. I want it so bad.
You can't play though because you're gonna lie to
I'm
you.
not going to. But that's the.
You can officiate.
I wouldn't play that. But that's the thing. It's like I know myself and going in.
Right.
So like, can I buy into this? No. So that's a matter of like you as a player knowing.
Right.
And you took and Virik to bring it back. Virik took a chance on this PBTA game at GameX, and he was rewarded for that. And he was rewarded for his buy-in. So thank you for taking a chance on some Happy Jackers and a crazy game. And I'm glad that you had a really good time.
Excellent. Do I know him? Do I know this guy? I'm not sure if I know. I don't. I meet people at game conventions. I'm assuming he's local if he was at the GameCon. But I don't know. I think I do.
I don't know my own name, so.
Okay. Case of the overly analytical analyst from Byron.
This
Happy.
sounds like one for me.
Yeah.
Hello, Happy Jacks. It is that gaming adjacent guy who still won't get a divorce to play more games.
I'm telling you, get your priorities straight.
When Stu gets murdered by this guy's wife or husband, sorry, I don't know. I'm not going to be surprised.
Or
Saying.
just marry a gamer.
I feel like he's already married is the point.
Well, I mean, then marry another. I don't know.
2 marriages is the new one.
In an exciting turn of events, which we
I'm kidding, by the way. Go ahead.
I'm not. I've actually managed to play and help co-GM a game.
Excellent.
I'll stay from a strategic point of view, having one guy build all the pre-constructed characters and one run the actual adventure worked out well, with me being able to coach the others in cool things their characters could do, and freeing him up to run through the module. While not my favorite new game ever, Pathfinder 2nd Edition felt solid, but I do definitely recommend a character builder of some sort. Wow, 2nd Edition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That came out
It
recently.
it's like real new.
Nice.
10 times as many feats as the old version. I don't know.
But still, the ones that were good are still good.
Oh, yeah.
The rest are just kind of... No, I'm just kidding. That being said, I know I am unique and loving to read both settings and dig through the rules that make them tick. But you know that? Okay.
You're unique if unique means 2 people. Which is why I brought this email in when you were here.
Yes. In my tabletop wargaming days, I started using tools like anydice.com and the Troll Dice Roller. Oh, I know the Troll Dice Roller.
Right.
To use statistical analysis on projected outcomes. Have I mentioned I had fun doing a drunken Fourier transformation? Drink. Oh, fuck yeah!
What does that mean?
It's a statistics thing.
It's a what?
It's a math.
It's a math.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
mapping. It's mapping.
One of the things that I personally love to do is make spreadsheets. And then...
Cappy, there's a line, and the line was your poop play. And you've crossed that line again.
So the spreadsheets, you can
I think most
actually,
people would agree with the other.
yeah, right. You can actually do randomizers in them, and so just
Oh, yeah,
brute
you showed
force-
me one of those,
Yeah, like 10,000 different like randomizations of your dice mechanic, and just kind of like see how it plays out, and then you can keep like randomizing it, and you kind of see where the trends go, and that's a lot of fun when like you look at something and go, I don't want to figure out equation for this. I would rather just do something else and like wait 10 minutes before this refreshes because there's 10,000 permutations with like 10 different dice.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, no, that's totally fun. I just did that with a thing that I'm working on for a PBTA game.
The one we were talking about, right?
I guess my question is, how much does math play into your enjoyment of games? Some of them are really easy, looking at you percentiles, and some of them get more muddy, looking at you L5R and ORE. I often find the how and why systems work the way they do just as cool as the world they're in. Does this come into play as you design and look at games you want to play? Or is it more, hey, look, Star Trek, I like Star Trek? Does the experience you had with the Star Trek game make you want to play other 2D20 games? Keep on keeping on. Byron in the forum.
To the Grizz.
P.S. Drink.
For those of us who don't know what ORE stands for.
One
One
roll.
roll engine.
Wild Talents.
Oh, okay.
Wild talents!
Wild Talents. Be excellent to each other.
I mean, the answer is like, for me, like playing with the numbers and figuring that things out. That is something I enjoy outside of a game. Like in the game, the math needs to get out of the way. Like the math is going to help determine how you play. Like if you're playing a percentage dice system and you have like a 40% chance of hit on like a D100, that's going to suck. Like you're not going to want to do that a lot. It's one of the reasons why it's also the fact that you're fighting elder gods, but like Call of Cthulhu, having a gun is like the most useless piece of equipment you can have.
It's actually a dangerous piece of equipment.
Yeah. Flare gun is even worse. I learned that a couple
Yes.
times.
It gives you a false sense of security.
And that's
As a
well,
bad
really,
thing.
just like Call of Cthulhu, any fight is a bad fight.
Right.
Yep.
Like it's the L5R thing. It's like any fight's gonna be bad.
But even with, like he said, like really easy looking at you percentiles, it's actually, I think percentiles are actually much harder to play because your rolls are much less reliable.
Yes.
Like in the 40K system, the old 40K system was percentile based. And so you're a fucking space marine in giant armor. You're 8 feet goddamn tall outside of the armor. You got this thing, and you're just missing all the goddamn time.
Right.
Just fucking constantly missing because it's a percentile system. As opposed to things like one roll engine, you're rolling a lot of dice and putting together like getting successes, etc. Or with L5R, it's roll and
or
keep.
putting pairs and
Or putting
multiples
pairs, yeah.
together, right.
And L5R, you've got roll and keep. So those are actually a little more reliable than like percentage
percentile,
system.
right.
They're a lot easier.
Or like a PBTA versus Pathfinder or D&D, where like your spread is just
right.
like it's a more forgiving thing. Like rolling 2d6 versus rolling
Right.
d20.
And like, even though the system for a apocalypse world is very simple, because it's set up in like these ways where in some instances it's very specific, in some instances it's very vague, and you have these partial successes that give like your master of ceremonies like hints and ideas of what they can do to you because of it. It becomes a very fluid and very interesting system, even though it's just 2d6, roll a 7 or better for a hit. So, like, you really kind of have to look at how the system works within the context of the game. Like we're saying with L5R, it's super fucking deadly. Like, if you get hit with a katana, or somebody swings at you with a katana, there's about a 40% chance you're going to die.
Right.
Like, if you're a starting character. And so, like, that really, really changes, like, how you think about things. But, like, that same thing can happen in other games. Like, in the PBTA kind of version of it, it's the same thing. Like, I'm setting it up so that there's a 40% chance that if you get swung at, you're going to die. For a hack I'm doing for L5R and PBTA. And so, like, that's what's interesting about the math, I think. of like trying to set yourself up for success for that kind of mouthfeel for the players to experience. But if the players are thinking about math in the game and they're not thinking about how their character do things, I think that that's a problem.
See, that's why I tend to gravitate towards L5R and dice pool games, because with my limited mathing ability, I can't figure out what my probability is, especially in roll and keep, because you know what roll and keep is?
No.
You'll take a number of d10s, and let's say it's roll 6, keep 3. So you'll roll 6 dice and you keep the 3 highest.
Yeah.
How do you figure out the probability?
You brute
to
force
roll a
on
20 or
a
higher.
spreadsheet.
Right.
Or you find there's actually an L5R probability calculator
There
you
are.
can look at too. But
Well, but also like,
Because I don't want to know what the percentages are.
yeah, I mean, how much do the percentages really like, especially in a setup like that?
Right.
Roll 6, keep 3. It's like, okay, well, that is what it's going to be.
Right. Well, but
And like, I don't know, I guess my answer to this question is like, if the math is too complicated, I will not play the game, would be how that translates for me. But I don't think about the math while I'm playing at all.
see, to me, if it's super complicated to figure out what the probability is of a dice roll, to me that's an advantage because I'm not going to do that. If it's roll 3d6 and you're rolling low,
you know.
I used to know
Yeah.
the bell curve for 3d6 because that's what GURPS uses. Like every number, I used to know what the percentage was. It's like 0.5% for a 3 and whatever. But
Wow.
yeah, well, because I played that game for like 12 years.
Even so, like
Yeah.
I played Pathfinder for 6. I played a couple of Pathfinder campaigns for like a full 6 years. And I never learned any of the technical math.
Well,
behind
with
any
it,
of
with a
it.
d20, every number is 5%.
But then you have like things that you like modifiers and all of that kind of stuff, and like I never
Right.
I never learned any of that. I
But-
never even thought about maybe learning any of that.
Well, I learned it because when I was making bad guys, I wanted to say, okay, well, I want this guy to be able to hit 70% of the time. So, and I'd give him a 15 or a 16 in skill level, and I know that's about how often he would hit. But the nice thing about dice pool games, I have no idea. It's like, okay, you're playing vampire and you need to get 8, 9, or 10 successes, and you're rolling 8 dice. I don't know what your chances are. If you get them, you get them. If you don't, you don't. Great.
Like, what is better for your dice pool? To get an extra die or roll 9 again as opposed to 10 again?
I have no idea. You know.
I do.
What is it?
The +1 die is better.
It is, okay.
Generally speaking, because your dice pool, it fluctuates depending on how big your dice pool is. If you're rolling 20 dice, then a 9 again can be significantly better. But if you're typically rolling only like 4 or 5 dice,
See, but if I were to
getting
ask
extra
you
die
off
is
the top of your head, what's better, 4 keep 4 or 10 keep 3?
10 keep 3 is better.
10 keep 2.
Then 4 keep 4 is better.
Wow.
Those are my guesses. I might be wrong, but those are my guesses.
Okay.
Because
But
10,
you said it with such authority that it doesn't matter if it's a guess.
well, it's basically you're banking on the idea of how many 10s you're going to get because they explode.
Right.
So, like, if you get a 10, you roll it again. So, if you have 10 dice and you roll 1 10 and it goes again, then you're awesome. That's one of the reasons why it's so easy to die, because if you roll, like, 6 keep 2 to, like, kill somebody and one of them rolls it as a 10, then you're wrecking them.
Right.
They're going to be done. But for the most part, an extra kept die is way better than an extra rolled die.
No.
So it's just the discrepancy between 4 keep 4 and 10 keep 3.
Now, getting to his question at the end, I like Star Wars. I'm not like a huge like fanboy, but I enjoy it. I like the universe. I think it's kind of cool. But he's talking about Star Trek. But he's talking about. But I'm talking about. Do you gravitate towards the game because of the subject matter or because of the system? I got all of the books for Fantasy Flight Games Star Wars because I came up with an idea that really excited me to run a game sort of after episode 6. I figured before the sequel started coming out, or I think the first one had come out, or it was about to come out. There's going to be several decades when the sort of like chief administrators of the empire are going to deny that the emperor has been killed, and they'll just create holograms of him and whatever they need to do to be able to just keep the empire going. So I set the game during the decline, when word is finally starting to spread that the emperor is dead and all of the moffs and grand moffs are starting to create their own fiefdoms. That's kind of what I was going for. But the game itself, the system was so cumbersome, I did not have fun running it. If I'd run it in something else, I probably would have enjoyed the game, running the game, but I didn't like the system.
I find that Fantasy Flight makes good board games. But how they kind of try and translate that experience in the role-playing game, like world, it really doesn't work. Like, its system is so cumbersome. How they actually put out like new materials is super cumbersome because you have to like flip between like 5 different books to like make a fucking character.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it's terrible.
But and then how you're actually like when it's up to the GM, like how. Like, there's so much work to putting in what other extra dice there is for the dice pool, because you roll both positive and negative dice at the same time.
And they don't have numbers on them.
They don't have
symbols.
numbers on them. Yeah, and then
You're reading chicken entrails.
yeah.
Okay.
Then
well,
you
I mean,
might-
I can get behind that part.
You might have to come up with like 8 different things that of
Right.
like maybe like 8 different like complications that are not bad, but like are kind of worrisome for when they were like saying hi to
like
somebody.
I would just throw my hands up and be like,
Nope.
and I'm done.
Or you might fail, but some really great thing happens. Or you
Right.
might succeed, but some horrible thing happens.
Then what's the point of even rolling at all?
Right, 'cause
if it's that randomized, just like you're just hitting a button or you're just flipping through the choose your own adventure book like at random and picking out an ending.
You basically have like there's like there's like 2 dimensions in the dice rolls, because there's success and failure, and then you add and subtract those to figure out whether you've succeeded or failed. But then there's other symbols that show up for I can't forget what they
like
call them. A
opportunity-
despair
oh,
and
yeah.
a
and
not
bullshit. I don't know. A goody thing.
a big win. We'll call it a big win.
Well, it's not a big win, it's
Triumph.
like
a triumph.
Yeah.
Triumph and a despair. And those things are separate from whether the character succeeds or fails at what they did.
But then there are the more minor ones too.
Yes. Yeah, it's
But that sounds outside of like. I mean, this system just sounds. This sounds outside of the math.
You
Of
can
it.
math it, but I wouldn't suggest it.
No, but outside of the math question, yes, we are drawn to games. I think we all are.
Yeah.
I can speak for all 3 of us that we are drawn to games for subject matter setting, in addition to or in spite of the system itself.
and I didn't realize what the game would play like until I actually played it.
Yeah, and that happens. I mean, like, Lord knows, like, when I was a teenager, I read that Vampire Masquerade book, like, more times than I'm going to admit to the internet. But, like, actually watching an AP of it, I still have never played it. I did not have role-playing friends when I was in high school.
It's a Vampire the Masquerade's a fun game.
But it's a completely different experience playing something versus reading it.
Oh sure.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
And so, like, I can totally get behind your, like, reading the materials, reading the, like, that love. But, like, I'm never going to math it. But, like, I
Don't worry, I'll do it
understand-
for you.
There we go. Maybe your co-GM idea is really the best thing about this.
One of the things that I personally like about mathing a system is that I can then tweak it for how I want it to play. One of the things that I did in Traveler is, you know how, like, when you take damage, it's like, I think it's your endurance, and then you take down, like, other ones, like, one at a time.
Yeah. It's like
I-
you're taking points out of your stats when you
Right.
take damage.
And so it's significant because your stats are very significant to your die rolls.
Also, your stats are not that high.
Right. So I did all of them at once. So if you take 6 damage, they all go down 6. And if one goes to 0, you pass out. If they all go down to 0, you die.
So, but basically, then if you, oh my god,
Basically,
why?
if you get into a firefight,
you'll die.
it's dangerous, is what I wanted. I want people to get into, because, like, the idea that I had is these are, like, more like tramp freighter people. You're not,
okay.
like, superheroes going to put on, like, yeah, I'm going to fight, like, 12 guards, and fuck yes, like, no. Like, my player, Jessica, got hit in the head with a spanner in the first game and almost died.
Yeah.
Because that would happen. Like, if you get hit in the head with, like, a chunk of metal,
Well,
then
even in,
bad
like,
things would
and
happen.
spoilers for our Traveler game, but, like, we got in a fight with one lurker,
And whoops.
and Stork, like, almost bled out of the game floor. Like,
Stork? No.
I know, right?
Did he roll bad?
Yes, but also, like, it was a giant mutated creature, and, like,
Right.
it was an apex predator, and we are not.
So,
But, I mean, it's completely conceivable in a Traveler game that, like, any fight you get into, especially because of the randomness of Traveler character creation, because you're generally not going to be making, this is not like a D&D or a Pathfinder system where you can min-max and you really massage everything or whatever. There is a lot of, like, mathing that can go into your character creation. But there's so much randomness in it that, like, generally you end up with a character that will probably have some really great positives, but you can just roll a, like, super mediocre character.
you don't get the character you want, you get the character you deserve.
Why, thank you. I mean, I love my
No,
character.
I mean, no, I had one of my players, she wanted to make, like, a diplomat. Like, an elegant, beautiful diplomat, and she ended up with a mechanic. And she's like, God, why did I don't want to be me. Can I just...
I mean, that just sounds a little too real. Too real. But, like, you know, even if you roll... And the great part is, like, even if you think you're rolling super well in Traveler character creation, like, bad shit happens and you end up with a lot of baggage.
Yeah.
Like, in Traveler, just going into the game. And so, I find it really interesting because it's a very balanced thing that way. And yes, like, our characters are not going out looking for fights. We want to avoid fights. We're not good at fights. Or even if we could be okay at fights, it's still not really a good idea. Like, none of us have good healing skills.
Well, that's what I got
Right.
after Jessica was almost killed with a spanner. Like, people started running from fights, and that's what I wanted. I wanted, like, no, or they didn't get into fights; they got into murders. Right.
I mean, that happens.
And so, like, that is the way that, like, Bill's character just murdered people because he's a very intelligent human, like, it worked out great. And then at one point, one of my players, who is a very much like a combat monstery person, thought she could take on like 10 people, and that went poorly. But yeah, I mean, knowing how the system works and mathing it, I think, can let you personalize the game for like how you want it to play.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
But that, like, I think that is much more important than playing a quote unquote interesting die mechanic game.
Yes.
Because certainly, absolutely, Fantasy Flight games are interesting mechanically.
Yes. Sometimes too interesting.
So all the time too interesting. But like Star Trek, I would be ambivalent to playing Star Trek. After reading the Star Trek book and watching the AP, I am much more interested in playing Star Trek because they just, okay, we're focusing on what you do with the ship, how you interact with the ship, how you interact with the other people. We're not going to quibble with how much you know of quantum mechanics. Like, you're an engineer, you all know quantum mechanics.
Right.
Like, and the 2D20 games, like how you get more dice and stuff like that, is very interesting, but it's also really quick and it's really easy. So, I mean, Mephidius makes good games.
That's Mephidius?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Mephidius. They also did Conan. The new Conan is a 2D20 game. That one is also like really good. And they also like focused on bringing in like scholars on Conan for the Conan game, which is
really?
like interesting. Yeah, and they only use
Scholars from the Hyborian Age?
they only used
Hyborian
information
historians.
from the books that
Arthur Conan Doyle wrote.
Yeah, whoever, and people who like focused on his books. So like, there's very good continuity with it, because when you have like 10 different people writing books for like one character, things get kind of weird. But like also the fact that they focused on that so much, along with trying to come up with something that is interesting but fluid. And I think that fluidity, that movement, like oh yeah, I can get an extra d20. Cool. As opposed to, what is the probability if I
Right.
get an extra d20? Yeah, like you're saying, fuck that. I don't want to know it. Like learning it for the L5R system is kind of more intuitive. Like I don't, well, I know some of the actual numbers, but I don't know like all of the actual numbers. But it's that intuition of what plays better than something else that kind of brings you into it. So,
Right.
math good, too much math bad.
Yes. I agree. All right.
I feel like all math is bad and should be abolished. Not really, but
Oh.
like I felt like we needed a dissenting opinion there. And
You got to have some.
It fell
math.
on me.
You have to have some math. Oh, by the way, total tangent. When I followed you on Twitter, for the next 2 days, when I on a PC, not on a phone, but on the PC on the left hand side, here are other people you might like to follow.
were they all math people?
No, they all had the first name Pooja.
That's because my name is really, really common. It was probably, I think it was the most popular name of my generation.
But
It means religious service.
but why? When I
But
put
why algorithm? Why?
because if I follow, I don't know, Jim Shatner,
It's not just Jim.
I don't get a bunch of Jims.
I don't know.
And
There's one guy named Jim to Jim.
right,
I
when
mean, when I follow people, it tends to give me like everyone else that person knows.
yes,
Yeah.
But like,
I'm assuming you don't know 8,000 people named Pooja.
no, just 7.
Maybe it was the 7.
It
Maybe
might
that
have
was
been
what
the
I saw
7.
over the next couple
Maybe
days.
it was
I'm
the
like,
7.
why is it all people named Pooja? This is so weird.
Maybe it's because we actually all we follow a lot of the same people anyway. And it was like, gotta go somewhere.
It's
We're
like
just
the-
gonna latch onto the name.
It's like the My Name's Pooja Club. Everyone.
It would be such a big club. It's too big. It's too big.
Is it really a super common name?
Yes.
Really? Okay. All right.
Just to end, did you guys know, a little bit of trivia here, did you know that the book Alice in Wonderland is really a like stodgy mathematician complaining about new math? It isn't like
it
about
really?
craziness, it isn't about drugs, it isn't about any of that. It's like this Euclidean who's really pissed off that people are ignoring his 2,000-year-old math book.
That Lewis Carroll?
Yeah,
Is a
yeah, he's a
mathematician? I didn't even know he was a
Euclidean
mathematician.
Charles
That's awesome.
Dodgson, yeah.
This has cheapened my entire childhood. I would like to move on now.
Well, clearly he never met Lovecraft
I'm just saying, like,
and the whole
I'm just saying
non-Euclideanness of the universe.
He'd be upset about it.
Yes, he would. Sorry, what were you saying?
that my entire. I wish I had never heard that. Like, wow, how fucking petty, you asshole. Not you, Lewis Carroll.
Here you're
I
thinking
love
he's writing
you.
Here you think he's writing stories for his children, but no, just griping about math.
He's just griping about math. yeah.
Jerk. Okay. A
He's like
sense
me-
of progression.
Oh, you want to
from
read it? Go
Ryan.
ahead.
No.
Oh.
But you introed for us, so I figured I would intro for
Thank
you.
you. Hello.
Oh my.
Hope all is going well in your life. It's all right. It's not bad. At least the things you want to go well, whatever you are into. I'm writing about a sense of progression in RPGs for your consideration.
Are we voting on this? Or
Yes,
are we now
yes.
voting on letters?
There is a motion on the table.
It's like there are all these like ads like outside for your consideration. And it has
Do I have a
sense of
second?
projection.
Sorry, we're in LA. It's an Emmy joke.
It has been seconded. Is there a call for a vote? All right. You know, my grandmother used to be a parliamentarian.
Really?
Yes. She used to go to meetings where they would have meetings that were run by the parliamentary system about their parliamentary club.
That's wretched. So it's a meeting club about meetings.
Yes, it's a meeting club about meetings.
Oh my god. My favorite thing about meetings is none of us is as dumb as all of us.
I like that.
Maybe. I am writing on a previous episode. On a previous episode, you read an email about character progression, about if character progression was necessary, and I wanted to chime in on that and expand for your consideration. Your thoughts are appreciated. People feel a sense of accomplishment when they do things that are hard, but less But let us look at what is hard in terms of RPG. We are sitting around a table, rolling dice, pulling cards, talking in funny voices. What's hard about that? We have to manufacture difficulty by introducing a try-fail cycle. You shoot a snoo for 2d7 damage and get 8 points.
Why would you shoot the snoo?
Because...
Leave the snoo alone.
No, snoos are the bane of the florbs. Aren't they? And the florbs are good, right? I don't know.
It depends on your perspective.
I want a 7-sided die. I really want a 7-sided die. I find it very Lovecraftian.
Oh my god. A 3D7 system would be
No,
so
God.
great.
I mean, I'm just saying, like, if in the world of the Laundry Files, they play TTRPGs, they're using 2d7 and 2d9.
Right. Average roll of 3d7?
Average roll of 3D7?
12.
Okay, we're moving.
No, it isn't. It'd be like 21 and be like 10.5 and a little bit under.
Really?
Let me see. Okay, well, I'm gonna do the math real quick. I'm gonna do some combinations real quick, and I'm gonna fucking find
But
this out.
getting back to Ryan.
All right.
12 for 2D7.
4 is your average number for a 1d7. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 4 times 3 is 12. Son.
That's not how. Alright, hold on. 3D7.
All right. So you shoot a snoo for 2d7 damage and get 8 points of damage on the snoo. Too bad it has 14 because you failed to kill it. It files a scathing rebuke of your actions and mails it off to the local post on its turn to be published in the local newspaper for its action. You bite it for 2d9 damage and take 10 points of damage from its corpse. You have just succeeded in killing the snoo. Not that hard. You only failed once. If it had 30 points, that would be harder because you would probably fail 3 times three times to kill before you succeeded. Second, we have a discrete counter. This is the same thing in principle if you are collecting MacGuffins or assassinating princesses to save the fairy dragon. We have Y out of X to go. This is only really useful if your players care about the story the GM is putting in front of them. But I have a lot of games where the fun that followed this without much appeal of leveling, looting, or fighting. In practice, did you figure it out yet? Okay.
I don't think it's 12.
Oh, he's
right.
got time.
Yeah, I got time.
In practice, if you do this in a fight, if everyone knows how they have to do to beat the baddie. For example, in Savage Worlds, for instance, every wild card has the same amount of wounds they have till they die, and running bennies can make the players feel like they're making progress towards their goal. The same principle applies to dramatic tasks in the same system. I have to pass X rounds out of Y. Right. Third, we have progress via resolution of a mystery. In Call of Cthulhu, you don't get stronger with a scenario, but you investigate, gather information, and learn about the thing that is vexing you so that you can work towards dealing with it. Knowing that Migo, not Amigo, because that's not what he wrote, can put John Miller's brain in Bill Smith's body without leaving scars will explain why your buddy Bill is saying he doesn't remember you that night of the fire and gets you closer to finding where they are stashing Bill. Knowledge is its own reward, and it keeps players coming back week after week to see what else they can learn to resolve the mystery. You can have a sense of mystery in any game, and that can keep players interested and give them a real sense of accomplishment when they resolve it. Drink break. I'm going to take one.
Drink. Tappy was too busy mathing.
And
to
then
drink.
math. You're gerunding wrong. Get it?
The caring.
All right. The hardest sense of progression is survival game is a survival game in my view. This is when your reward for playing is to say that you survived. This is the thought behind the infamous Tomb of Horrors by TSR. They are usually one-shots, but they can be very fun if you've got the right people who are on the same page. Kind of calls back to the first email, but not PvP, but dying.
So, what did you say it was?
12.
You're correct.
I just counted in my head. I'm like, this one. Average on 3d6. 10.5.
That's what I figured out. That's what I was like, no, it's like 10.
Okay,
because
and
it's
back
the
to
number of them.
Ryan.
Sorry. They're
And so
usually...
that's- but it's up further because of the thing.
Yes. Tabby's never going to talk to me again because I was right in a math problem.
Oh, that's fine.
I'm usually
People
not.
can be
though.
right.
Broken clock. It can be your party made up of a Spanish swordsman, a giant, and a crippled dread pirate Rogers. Was it Dread Pirate Roberts?
It was Dread Pirate
Okay.
Roberts.
Storming the castle
I mean,
to save the
do not besmirch Wesley's name.
right.
Never mind. I got nothing.
To save the Princess Buttercup from being forced to marry the evil prince because he had plans to kill her on the wedding night. Your party, quote-unquote, wins if the princess lives. It doesn't have to be literal life or death. This is also a formula you use for noir plots, which are about seeing if the character's moral code will survive the adventure. My Life with Master is a great example of this. If you ever wanted to play as Igor, or is that Igor?
Igor.
Igor.
I've heard it both ways.
Well, they were wrong then, weren't they?
That was such an organic, awesome call to a wonderful film. Where was I? Noir plots about the character, moral code to survive the adventure. My Life with Master is a great example of a game if you ever wanted to play as Igor trying to break free of the insidious relationship with Vic. Oh, I forgot myself. The Master. L5R is more about honor than victory, as another example. Finally, if we have construction as a sense of progression. This could be character, a ship, a castle, or whatever. The point is you are doing all this to build something. Say you have a level 1 barbarian and you want to get a level 5 so that you can multi-class with a warlock to make your character feel your life has been with a warlock to make your character feel your life has been without. I do not blame myself for that sentence. I'm pretty sure I read it correctly. All right.
You got it. Dead on.
And I just lost my place. It will take. It will
To make
take.
a character you feel your life has been without. Oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say you have a level 1 barbarian that you want to get to level 5 so that you can multi-class with a warlock to make the character you feel your life has been without. Like the character that
How
you've
about your
won-
life has
that
been
you've been
missing?
that you've been missing all your life.
Right.
You've been missing all your life.
I like math.
Don't end your sentences with a preposition.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So where are you from, bitch?
Right. It will take you a few games to get there, but then you do. Yay, level. This is enough for some people. I have had people refuse to play in certain systems because they didn't level or didn't level fast enough. They are jonesing in a way that 2 levels of Warlock can't cure.
Can cure.
Can cure. This can even include the rare case that the system actually has mechanics for real character progression, such as when one plays Fate and their aspect I can never love a dwarf becomes I can trust a brother, and your gruff dwarven fighter becomes thick as thieves with the elven archer he has fought and bled with. These are both examples of building a character, but you can do the same thing with any construction project, including a relationship. In my experience, any of these methods work for a solid method for having engaged players. I have played Call of Cthulhu games without progressing skills because I had a sense of mystery that kept them going. I've had Fate games where no one progressed their refresh or upped their skill because they used milestones to change their aspects instead. You do not need levels or skill progression to keep people interested in your game. You just need to give them a reason. Thoughts? Drink, Ryan.
So basically, this is about engagement, not about progression.
Kind of.
Yes.
And so it's like, can you keep your characters engaged? I don't know if progression is what that is the most like is the strongest force for engagement, because that happens.
I think that depends on the players.
It can be, like, in my old games, in the long, dark days of D&D 3.5, and
Skipped it. I skipped the twos
you
and the
only
threes.
did right in your life then. No, I don't want to disparage things. Like,
I went to
honestly,
1 to 4.
the fact that I played that much, and then still played, and continued to play, and I'm now sitting here with you today, is despite the fact that I played a ranger in 3.5.
Wow.
But we played a lot for progression, like the idea of like being able to get stronger and trout stronger monsters, because Lord knows there was not a story aspect that was crucial to these games. It's engagement. It's what your players want. And if your players just want to feel like they're getting more and more powerful and they take more and more feats, or they're up in that stat, so from the +3 to the +4 modifier, and that's what drives them, more power to you. I had as much fun as was possible playing a ranger in 3.5 during those days.
Fair enough.
So
I kind of get what he's talking about here now, because when we were playing FFG Star Wars, Bruce was playing a gadgeteer. Bruce didn't care about his character advancement. Bruce wanted bits and pieces of stuff and money to be able to mod other people's weapons so their weapons became more effective. It is kind of character advancement, not just for him, but for other players as well, because equipment is kind of a form of character advancement. And that's what was scratching that itch for him, rather than my character's getting better at this or the skill levels are going up. It's I've got more stuff that I can use to do more mods on the.
and this is like
so-and-so's
like in a
blaster.
PBTA setup where you have threads, and you don't necessarily have to take an advance when you get all of the quote unquote experience to get an advance.
Right.
But that's currency. So you can choose to like hold your marks, whatever they're called, in the PBTA flavor that you're playing. I say threads because I'm currently playing a Demigods game, but
Well, also,
But, like, that's the
threads
thing.
can be spent. A lot of times when you mark experience, you can't spend that. So there is an
True.
economy of experience because you can give other players experience for doing what you want them to do.
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely, I agree that that's an economy and a way for players to interact with each other. But, like, there are parts of PBTA, or there are games using that concept, that once you hit 5, you
you have to
automatically...
spend it right then. But there are flavors
that.
that don't. And it's not just Demigods, but I think Mass as well. Like, you don't necessarily have to spend it right as you get to 5, and like, it might be someone's gonna actually me on this. But like, if you don't, you can use your advance as part of a climactic moment as well, which is cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and if we're talking about engagement, progression is an easy way to get, and it's built into the system to get engagement, right? If you're talking about, I want to fight stronger monsters. Not all games have stronger monsters, but you still have that form of engagement. And you don't have to get rid of that form of engagement in order to have other forms of engagement along with it. Like engaging with their story, players engaging other players, you know, like real, like deep-seated emotional connections. All those things are really engaging for players. But yeah, I mean, getting better, like in the game that I'm running, the Autumn People, the XP system got really convoluted with Chronicles of Darkness. I'm just kind of ignoring it, and I'm giving my players XP so that they can get better while we play, because that's awesome.
Right.
And I want my players to
there's
be awesome.
all kinds of
I mean,
like
who doesn't want their players to be awesome?
Yeah. So like I'm just
Call of
it's like
Cthulhu GMs.
Technically, I feel like if you're playing Call of Cthulhu, you also don't want your characters to be awesome. So then once again, engagement and buy-in.
Right.
It's coming full circle.
well, yeah, I mean, and that's a lot of what like players in GM really end up wanting is engagement and buy-in, right?
And
so-
that's what makes a good game. And like, if you're I'm going to spout my opinion right now.
All right.
And disregard years and years of social conditioning. If you're a good GM, you're going to reach an accommodation with your players to give them the kind of engagement that they feel satisfied with. And that also you feel satisfied with. So it's also a compromise. But sometimes that has to do with leveling up and progression, and sometimes that just has to do with like telling a really good story. And sometimes and a lot of times, I would say most times, it's a mix of both. You want to feel like your character is getting somewhere, and the game system itself tends to reward like a mentality that your player is getting somewhere when you level up. But say like in Traveler, I know we've talked about this a lot, but Stu and I are both in that Traveler game, is that like our characters aren't really getting anywhere in terms of a level up.
No, not really.
Like
no.
that's not what Traveler is about. We're progressing a story. So if you are a player who's really into like getting new skills, or you know the old D&D or Pathfinder, like getting new feats and stuff like that, that's not necessarily the game system for you, or that's not the kind of game that we're playing. But yeah, it's just about tailoring your game to the group that you have.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good chance to say that, like, if you have a story you really want to tell, or a story you want to explore with a group of people, which I feel like is a better way to describe TTRPGs, because it's not just you as a GM telling a story, it is you exploring a story idea with a group of people and seeing where it goes.
I've played with people who disagree with you.
I will say to your face, they are wrong.
Yes, they are.
That like find the system that best fits that, because your story idea will generally fit into a lot of different systems. And just in this episode, we've talked a lot about several different gaming systems, and how, like, the Star Wars one specifically, like, the system got in the way of the playing.
Absolutely.
But the story idea that Stu had would have been better served in a different system.
Yes.
And you can adapt different systems to fit your needs. And
Especially with math.
no, don't tell people that. You don't need math. I mean, in day-to-day life, yes, you need math. But, like, in general, you don't need their kind of obsessive level of math. Not obsessive in a bad way.
No, it's obsessive that way. It's all right, you can say that.
But yeah, it's just a matter of, like, if you have a story and you want to tell it with a group of people and you want to explore where that goes, find the system that best suits the nature and predilections of the people that you're playing with, because otherwise, like, you're bound to run into problems. And nobody's ever perfect, but in general, you want to, like, you know, have the best time with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And there you go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I
who
feel
was
like I
that?
just made
Ryan.
brand pronouncements.
That's fine.
Yeah.
You did, and you were correct. Thank you for the email, Ryan. And I forgot to thank. I've been very remiss, and thank you, Verk, for the email, and thank you,
we
Byron.
thanked Bjork a lot.
Thanks, Bjork.
All right.
There's a thing on the inner tubes of, like, Bjork, like, talking about her television that if you haven't seen it, you need to look it up because it's goddamn amazing.
Bjork is goddamn amazing.
This is true.
But
This is
Iceland.
true.
What is it about Iceland? Iceland?
Deadlands?
Deadlands?
Well, if it's Deadlands, it must be Iceland.
But it's Redlands.
Well, it's Redlands. I mean,
But that's a different continent.
Redlands?
Redlands and Deadlands would both be on this continent.
Yes,
Deadlands
but
is,
Iceland isn't.
That's correct. That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
Iceland is.
Well, it's
is it Iceland
it's
or
not-
Iceland? I don't know. I don't know what
I
it
don't
is.
know either. I don't know.
I know it probably in Icelandic it's probably like 19 letters long.
I mean, and that is another thing that this is an
fucking
English
fly.
bastardization.
I know. I've been trying to kill
I
it
think
this
there
whole
are
time.
two. Before the fly drives us all to distraction.
I should end the thing. I was gonna read the Call of Cthulhu thing, but I think I'll save that for the opening session of the game. Last Sunday of this month, we're going to do a character creation for Murmurs from the Abyss, Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. I'm going to be running it. Players to be announced.
I want to do a Call of Cthulhu game called like Puppies and Kittens.
Don't distort and ruin Puppies and Kittens for everyone.
And I have gone down the rabbit hole of The King in Yellow. Robert W. Chambers was the first person to coin the term, the title for the play.
I bought the King in Yellow experience from the Mysterious Package Company.
Oh, really?
I have the statue in my living room.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
I'm just saying.
I actually put the Casilda's song, which is the only part of it that's been written. I put it to music. That's going to be the theme song. I don't have it on the thing. I'll play it for you out there.
Well, let me save something for the game.
Okay.
Save something for the game. In any case, thank y'all for watching.
All right, here we go.
And listening.
Wait.
Bye.
If I told you the things I've seen.
Thank you for joining us for season 24, episode 14 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
I'm Pooja.
This is Tabby.
And we'll see you next week, Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. Thank you very much. We'll leave with a song.
You wouldn't believe me anyway. So it's best I just don't say. I've lived 1,000 lives. I piloted 1,000 souls. I killed and fought and died just for a single role. When the ripe and bearded barley is smiling on the side.
Now 'tis come September, the hunter's moon's begun, and through the wheat and stubble is heard the frequent gun. The leaves are pale and yellow, kindling into red, and the ripe and bearded barley is hanging down its head.
All among the barley, who would not be blithe when the ripe and bearded barley is smiling on the side?
The spring is like a young maid who doesn't know her mind. The summer is a tyrant of the most ungracious kind. The autumn is an old friend whose love will not be banned, for she brings the bearded barley to gladden the hearts of man.
All among the barley, who would not be blithe when the ripe and bearded barley is smiling on the side?
The wheat is like a rich man, he's sleek and well-to-do. The oats are like a pack of girls, they're laughing and dancing too. The rye is like a miser, he's sulky, lean and small, and the ripe and bearded barley is monarch of them all.
All among the barley, who would not be blithe when the ripe and bearded barley is smiling on the side? Now 'tis come September, the hunter's moon's begun, and through the wheat and stubble is heard the frequent gun. The leaves are pale and yellow and kindling into red, and the ripe and bearded barley is hanging down its head. All among the barley, who would not be blithe when the ripe and bearded barley is smiling on the side?
preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.
Go away, Baton!
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.